Here we go.
You're listening to Renegade Broadcasting.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Oh, it's, what do you know? It's Pearl Harbor Day. Yeah. Another day where we got lied to, screwed you, and tattooed. Man, oh man, the infamy, the treason of it all. And yet, how very precious few actually understand what the hell went on there. To this day, that little bastard, that little tribal bastard, FDR, is praised as a great American hero. Speaking of that, this is interesting. You guys remember the TV show, The Greatest American Hero? That wasn't on for too long, but back in the, I think it started, it actually started in 1981. So I was still somewhat of a kid. I was 14, 15, whatever. But I remember watching it. It was this clumsy, hero who didn't know how to use his superpowers, He couldn't. He didn't know how to land. He flew clumsily. He was just really awkward, a real klutz. He was always crashing the side of a building or something. It was supposed to be this comedy thing. But anyway, interestingly, the show debuted. I think it was like 2 weeks before Hinckley's attempt on Reagan's life there. Hinckley, a.k.a. M.K. Eldred, son of close friends with the Bush family. But anyway, I'll do a show on that whole fiasco at some point here. Very interesting. And I'm also going to talk about that in conjunction with the attempts made on Mr. Gerald Ford. Very, very interesting, guys. Very, very interesting. But anyway, in the show, the secret identity of this greatest American hero carried the name of Ralph Hinckley, interestingly enough. And so, 2 weeks later, the attempt on Reagan's life, and the guy's name, of course, was John Hinckley. So the producers of the show quickly changed the name of the identity of the greatest American hero from Ralph Hinckley to Ralph Hanley. The question you got to ask yourself is, was that a coincidence? Was it? Really? Look at that novel that came out, I don't know, the late 19th century, 1890s or something, about a great passenger vessel, luxury passenger vessel that struck an iceberg and sank in the northern Atlantic. what was it called? The Titania or something like that. Yeah, yeah. That was a coincidence too, wasn't it? The world's just full of coincidences, and if you think there's any conspiracy going on, why, you're just paranoid. And that's why we have people that shoot up pizza places because of nuts like you crazy conspiracy nut. These things don't happen. Well, not in this country, anyway. They happen in other countries and in other periods of history, but not here. Not now. Jesus Christ. Anyway, getting back to our notes from yesterday on the Kabbalah here. I was about to read another interesting quote, and then the show had ended. But yeah, this quote is from historian M. Matter, who stated in his History du Gnosticisme, French publication, that Jewish scholars fully understand that the secret oral traditions of the Kabbalah were previous to any Christian Gnosticism. So away with the idea, like some would have us believe, that Gnosticism was borrowed just because the Kabbalah itself wasn't committed to paper or parchment until centuries after the arrival of Gnosticism on the scene. Doesn't mean that Gnosticism was original. Guys, who brought us Gnosticism? Jesus Christ. Goddamn tribe. I've had a few listeners over the years ask me, what do you think of Gnosticism? Sounds great, Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just like the New Age movement, or at least some aspects of it, sound great. They have some good ideas and, go back to Mother Earth. But yep, sounds good. A lot of them into herbs and, they're against pharmaceuticals. Oh, yeah, that sounds great. They throw that in there to reel you in. But the whole thing is a goddamn tribal creation. I did a show a while back on another network. I don't remember now what it was, but on the New Age movement and how, yes, oh, yes, from the word go, it's a tribal creation. Because they have some good things in it, guys, doesn't mean a thing. You got to watch out. I'm not saying don't ever read any New Age books. No, I hang out in the New Age book section every time I go into Barnes and Noble because I find a lot of interesting stuff in there. But, proceed with caution and recognize that, for that matter, sometimes I go over to the religion section. I go over to the Christian section. There's some great books in there. They usually have some really good, critical analysis of, not only of the biblical text, but the Christian religion in general. A lot of good history books about the tyranny of the Christian religion down through the centuries. That all winds up in there too. It's not just devotional books and Bibles. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's been some good stuff that has come out of the New Age movement. Don't get me wrong, but do be aware who created it and what the ultimate agenda is. And so if you do read anything coming under the banner of New Age, just be careful. Just be careful. By the way, you might be interested to know that back in the 1950s, and I don't know for how long before that, but I know back in the 50s, the official journal of Freemasonry was called New Age. Now, isn't that a kick in the ass? Before the term New Age became popularized as the official title for alternative, religion, as it's known, today, there was the main journal of Freemasonry called New Age. Very interesting. And even before that, you had people like Alice Bailey, talking about, quote, the coming of a new age. So the term new age, is not new. Anyway, back to the notes here. So here's what this historian wrote in this French book. He said the Kabbalah is anterior to the Gnosis, an opinion which Christian writers little understand, but which the erudites of Judaism profess with a legitimate assurance. In other words, they know it's much older. It goes way back. Of course it does. In fact, many people argue that ultimately, Judaic mysticism goes back to the Babylonian captivity. Well, I'll argue it even goes back before that, but nevertheless, it can be traced to that point. We know they were practicing mysticism at that time. But the claim is made that they picked it up from those evil Babylonians. Oh, really? Did they now? Oh, I'm so sick of hearing that. Bible dupes, of course, love that because now, that gives them exoneration. It gives their holy book exoneration. They didn't get their evil practices, their pagan practices from the Bible. The Bible condemns paganism until you start looking just a little more closely at the biblical text and you realize, oh, son of a bitch. The Bible's nothing but plagiarized paganism. Again, they took paganism and perverted and corrupted it. But nevertheless, for a book that loves to condemn paganism, there's a whole hell of a lot of paganism in the damn thing, as I pointed out a while back on several different shows, actually. I covered that from different angles. I talked about the Bible being a mystery religion. It is. It even uses the word mystery on numerous occasions to describe its teachings. Wow, 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 wow. Loaded with pagan themes. One of my favorites, as I've said before, I'll say it again, is Revelation 12, verse 1. You have the description of using symbolic language of, what's supposed to be the pure bride of Christ, the chaste virgin bride of Christ. She's described as a woman standing on the moon, clothed with the sun, wearing a crown of 12 stars. Holy shit, guys. If you know anything about ancient goddesses, that's how they were depicted. From Sybil to Diana to Ashtaroth to Semiramis, you name it. They depicted their goddess, and it was the same goddess, really. They just changed her name from one culture to the next, from one period to the next. But all of these cultures represented her as a woman, standing on the moon, a crescent moon, wearing a crown of 12 stars, and then having the beaming sunburst shining from behind her head with the light rays radiating out in every direction, or with a halo over her head. Nevertheless, still representing the sun, illuminating her. The same exact imagery that was used in Revelation 12:1 to represent the pure church of Christ. What is that doing in the Bible at all, but as a symbol to represent Christ's true church? The pagan goddess. Yee-haw! Ride 'em, cowboy! Roll 'em, roll 'em, roll 'em. You gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. Shove that one in your not-so-friendly neighborhood obnoxious Bible dope. Shove that in their face. See how they squirm. And then ask them, are you sure your book isn't pagan? As pagan as you can get, guys. I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with paganism. I'm simply saying, and by the way, since the Bible condemns paganism so much, once again, how bad can it be, right? If that damn thing condemns it, everything that thing condemns, you might want to take, well, I shouldn't say everything, but even when it does condemn something that's evil, again, guys, it's window dressing. Look a little closer and you realize it embraces the very evils it condemns all the time, not just paganism. it embraces real evils. On the one hand, it seems to be against murdering, right? But again, there's the great Yah monster, not only commanding murder, but commanding the murder of little babies. How about when it commands the slaughter of goddamn sheep and cattle and goats? Kill everything that breathes, including young suckling infants and the sheep and the cattle and goats. What the hell? No, never mind infants. What did sheep and cattle and goats do? At least infants have the potential to be evil one day, but goats and sheep and cattle? You can't use the argument, well, God knew that the goats, sheep, and cattle were going to become evil one day, so that's the excuse they give for baby killing, which is still bullshit. But nevertheless, they can't use that for the sheep and cattle and the goats. At one point ever could goats, sheep, and cattle become evil and be a threat. Yahweh foresaw that they were going to plan to take over the world one day, and he didn't want competition for his tribe because it's them he wanted to take control of the world over. Oh, Jesus Christ. Kill the sheep, cattle, and the goats. And these weren't for sin offerings. Nope, nope. When you raid the cities, kill everything, including the sheep and the goats and the cattle. What the hell was the reason for that? You can't even make up an excuse there like you try to do for the baby killing thing. There's nothing you can come up with. Although I heard one excuse one time. Oh, Jesus, this is a gut-busting belly laugh here. The reason for that was offered, well, they were engaged in genetic modification. So these weren't real, natural animal. Oh, shut the hell up. And where might I find a reference to that? Oh, I don't deny that in ages past there were some cultures here and there that had advanced technology that was able to do that stuff. But the tribe, really? Today, they hijack scientific institutions. They buy them and they control them with the shekels. Yeah, absolutely. But back then, no, not back then. No, they didn't have labs at their disposal out in the desert there. Sorry. No. God damn it. No. No, no, no. Nor did they in the land of Canaan, which is where these cities were being raided and had the cattle and sheep destroyed. Nobody in Canaan had advanced labs. Any advanced technological development at that stage, that was being done in the great cities like Babylon, the Persians. Persians had a lot of advanced technology. They made lenses, for example. They found lenses, folks. Ground lenses. In spite of the fact that we want to think that, that technology began in the 17th century with Galileo. No. Goes way back in history. But, it was in these big cultural epicenters that you had this advanced technology, like the Baghdad battery in Babylon, dating back to at least the 6th century BC. A battery capable of producing 1.5 volts of electricity, but they strung them up together so that collectively they could produce a much more significant charge. Yeah. They knew about and utilized electricity for various reasons. One of them was for electroplating jewelry. Archaeologists, had been finding, going back to the early or late 19th, early 20th century, they were finding electroplated jewelry at sites in Babylon and in Egypt. They couldn't figure out how were they doing it. They didn't understand electricity until they found the Baghdad battery. I think it was around 1930 that they found the first one. And then they realized, oh, son of a gun, they did understand electricity, and they utilized it. Of course, they really don't talk about that, though, do they? Unless you're doing your own digging, you won't know about the Baghdad battery. Of course, now you can't even go view it anymore at the Baghdad Museum because that's one of the items that was looted. They found several. Only one was on display. Who knows what the hell happened to the other ones? Probably frickin' Some people would say they destroyed them. No, no, they don't destroy stuff like that. They just secret it away so no one ever sees it. There's a story that's been circulated about a lot of the giant skeletons that the Smithsonian's own records show were exhumed by them in the 19th century. Scores and scores of them, if not hundreds of them. But yet none of them are on display. There's a story that's been circulated that the Smithsonian is known to have dumped them in the Atlantic Ocean. No, 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 no. That's just an urban legend. Forget it. That didn't happen, guys. Sorry. They don't destroy stuff like that. That's a very precious treasure to them, as much as it would be to anybody else. They secret it away. They don't destroy it. Oh, they might put propaganda out there to have you think they destroyed it, or put stories out. They're the ones that originate stories like that. They want you to think that there is no more trace of it. No, no, no. Just like when they looted the Baghdad Museum. You think they looted that museum so they could destroy this stuff? God damn it, no. It's in private collections. If you want to see the Baghdad Battery, go to New York. Talk to the old crinkled up, wrinkled bastard, Mr. Rockefeller. He's probably got a few of those things in his private collection. But anyway, wow, we're straying off big time here. Back to our notes. So where did the Kabbalah first originate? We talked about how Gnosticism started with Mr. Simon Magus. What about Gnosticism? Ultimately, its founder is believed to be an individual called Isaac the Blind. It's not known for sure that he was the original founder, but in the form that we know it today, the Kabbalah, not only as a written text, but as a school of thought. The word Kabbalah is used interchangeably to refer either to the text or, again, to the collective belief system embodied therein, which, by the way, just like the Bible, nobody agrees on. There's a multiplicity of different Kabbalists and Kabbalistic thinking. But overall, collectively, just like, Christianity is divided up into thousands of different sects, but collectively it's called Christianity. The same with Kabbalah. When it's not being used to describe the text, when it's being used to describe the school of thought, Kabbalah refers to all the collective different sects of Kabbalists out there. Anyway, look how much they love to create confusion, guys. Not just with their original creation called the Bible, the Kabbalah as well. All these different divisions, different sects, and they like to keep people divided. Some of these divisions have arisen, on their own, just like with Christianity. But to a large degree, guys, they created the schisms, the splits. Look at the famous one in 1054 between, the Eastern Orthodox and the Vatican. They were behind that to divide Christians, so they weren't so much as much as a threat to them. Even though they controlled the Vatican at the time, individual Christians were becoming a threat. They needed to, and then of course later, the so-called Protestant Reformation. That was another one of their schemes, as I pointed out before. Mr. Martin Luther was a rabid Rosicrucian, as was Mr. Calvin, a.k.a. Cowan. We don't need to elaborate on who he was, do we? But, these great leaders of the Protestant Reformation, which to this day so many Bible dupes, Protestant Bible dupes, look up to with such great reverence, they were scam artists, ladies and gentlemen. How is it that Mr. Martin Luther was able to escape the Reformation? The Counter-Reformation, the Inquisition. So many other leaders were caught and burned at the stake, buried alive, lit on fire, whatever. Never caught up with him. He lived to a ripe old age because they weren't after him. He was the Fidel Castro of his era. Supposedly they were after him. That damnable wretch. Never caught up with him. Everybody else that they wanted, within 3.2 seconds, they caught up with him and burned him at the stake, tortured him first, then burned him at the stake or buried him alive, on and on and on. Not him. Try as they did, they just couldn't catch him, so we're told anyway. They just like, the CIA, 60 attempts they made on Castro's life. They just couldn't catch up with him, and he lived to be a ripe old age, only dying, just a couple weeks ago. Oh, yeah. How much you want to bet that Mr. I never looked into that too deeply, but I wouldn't be surprised to discover that Mr. Martin Luther was a goddamn crypto. Certainly, Mr. Castro is or was. Of course, a great many Cubans are cryptos. The conquistadors who founded the Cuban colony there were almost all Sephardim. They converted to avoid being expelled from Spain or claimed, to convert. And why not? Look what was offered to them. Wow, I'll become a conquistador and I'll get to rape and pillage, literally and figuratively. Yeah. The ones that didn't wind up becoming pirates, going to Jamaica or down to Morocco, or that didn't relocate over to Amsterdam to rape and pillage Europe through the banking system, wound up becoming conquistadors. Anyway, back to the notes here. So it appears, as far back as we can trace it, Isaac the Blind appears to be the one who originally founded, Kabbalah as we know it today, for the most part anyway. The actual text wasn't committed to parchment until centuries later, but he's the one that is foremost known to have brought it more into the fore. Again, the philosophy as a burgeoning movement. All right, guys, short break for that.
Gonna make you burn, gonna make you stay. Hey, baby, when you walk that way, watch honey drip, can't keep away.
Over 1,200 rabbis. Can you imagine getting 1,200 rabbis to agree on one thing? But agree they did, and what they agreed was to ask our elected officials not to halt or even to limit the United States Refugee Admissions Program. And it's not just Hayek. Jewish organizations of all kinds across the spectrum of Judaism are issuing statements in support of refugees. These have included the Orthodox Union, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and so many of the Jewish organizations that you've heard are co-sponsors of this event.
All right, guys, welcome back. So anyway, this guy, Isaac the Blind, lived in the century, first century AD, and he's revered as the father of the Kabbalah. He's considered by Kabbalists to be the one who got the whole ball rolling. But like I said, guys, that's not when Jewish mysticism originated. No, he's just the one that ultimately, was the most responsible for bringing it more into the fore, more mainstream. And as I said a while back, they found a lot of ruins of synagogues from the early centuries, from the first right on into the third, fourth, even the fifth century AD, that showed obvious signs of involvement in, astrology. Again, something that's condemned in the Torah, right? But they were practicing it on a grand scale, heavily involved. Several synagogues were found with the zodiac built into the floor of synagogues, several of them. In the tiling, the mosaic design of the way the tiles were arranged, it formed a zodiac. And so this has puzzled a lot of people, wow, what's this doing in a synagogue? They were supposed to be against astrology. No. And as time has gone on, they began to realize that it wasn't just a few heretical, offshoots of Judaism that were doing this. This was something practiced across the board. Even when you read the Torah, there's the story of this one tribal king, i.e., freaking chieftain is what he was, king my ass. But anyway, I think it was Hezekiah. That's the guy whose name I couldn't remember a few weeks ago when I was trying to think of who dug the tunnel under Jerusalem. Yeah, it was Hezekiah. But anyway, there's a story of Hezekiah finding a book of the law. And he was so amazed to see what was in there. And when he started showing it to others, they were amazed. Nobody knew what was in the book of the law. Apparently, generations, centuries had gone by. Nobody knew about this book. Can you imagine, guys? Right there, doesn't that tell you that we got a big problem with this idea that the great Yah monster divinely preserved his word and had it available to all people, to all generations. There we have a story right in the Torah where his own Chosenites didn't even have access to his holy word for frickin' generations, perhaps centuries on end, until by chance Hezekiah happened to come across it. God damn it. No matter how you slice it, it comes out peanuts. That's what the Bible is. It's a big Snickers bar. But don't eat it. Don't eat it. It's loaded with all kinds of toxic preservatives and chemical artificial colorings and flavorings. And anyway, let's see. Back to my notes here. So yeah, as I was saying before, that they claim that the Kabbalah originated in Babylon. They picked up the corrupt teachings of Babylon. Guys, who corrupted who? Who corrupted who? The Babylonians corrupt them, or did they corrupt the Babylonians? Did the Babylonians introduce heathenism to them, or did they corrupt and pervert? God damn it. Look what they did in Greece, guys. Look what they did in Greece. Ancient Greece is known for rabid, pedophilia, right? They had what was called the pedagogos, which were teachers that wealthy parents would pay to come and teach their kids. They'd come into their home. They would take their kids out. They would trust their kids with these scumbags They take them out supposedly to give them an, hands-on lesson out in the field. Oh yeah, it was hands-on, all right. They had their hands all over them. And so, the Greeks are known for that, right? Where did they get it from, though? Who introduced that to them? The same people who have introduced this perverted sexual filth everywhere else they've ever gone. Who's introduced it in our society today, guys? Look at Pizzagate. Where does this come from? Oh, look at the patterns. Don't forget, I talked about artwork back in the Middle Ages where men are effeminate in their portraits. All the kings look like queens and the queens look like kings. You might as well put a goddamn beard on them. They look very masculine, right? That's no accident. Oh, that's just the art style back then. Oh, yeah? Look at our art style today. We talked a couple of weeks back about how, screwed up art became in recent decades, especially with, the CIA getting involved. Well, when we talk the CIA, who are we talking about? Art is all screwed up today, isn't it? Why? How? At whose hand? You think it was any different back then? The same people, goddammit, doing it for the same reason. They've always been doing this shit. Nothing new under the sun, as they say. Anyway. Let's see here. These traditions, these Kabbalistic traditions, with their associated rituals that include ultimately human sacrifice, provoked the prophet Jeremiah to warn Jews over a period of 40 years of their impending doom if they didn't turn from their evil ways. So Bible dudes will quote that to say, see, what do you mean the Bible's pagan? Here's Jeremiah condemning them. So, Jeremiah and God himself was against this paganism. Oh, no. First of all, once again, whose paganism was it? It was their perverted version of it that they were introducing to the Babylonians, not the other way around. But nevertheless, they want to claim that, the Bible is against paganism. What is it exactly that Jeremiah was condemning, ladies and gentlemen? What was he condemning? He was condemning the fact that these traditions were not from the great and admirable tyrannical mass murdering son of a bitch Moses. The same reason why Jesus protested the teachings of the scribes and Pharisees. They're not following the great admirable Moses, the mass murdering tyrannical son of a bitch. So was Jesus really all about pure and holy and righteous teachings when he condemned the Pharisees? No. He didn't like their version of corrupt, perverted teachings. He wanted them to follow the corrupt, perverted teachings of Moses instead. I don't like your shade of horse shit. I like this shade better. I like my shit runny and brown, not firm and dark black. Jesus Christ, man. Let's look at this for what it is. Once again, it's not a cute little fly farm. It's a freshly dumped pile of horse shit. That's all this book is, ladies and gentlemen. That's all it is. That's all it ever was. That's all it ever will be. Just like the Kabbalah, just like the Zohar, all of it. Every last bit of it. So let's put that to bed once and for all. Quoting Jeremiah, he's condemning these compromisers for their pagan teachings. Wasn't any more pagan than what Jeremiah was trying to lead them back to. That's pagan as well, or should I say their version of pagan, which is corrupted and perverted. Anyway, as the narrative goes in the Old Testament, the Chosenites didn't heed the warning of Jeremiah. So then the Babylonians eventually wound up destroying Jerusalem, supposedly as a judgment from the Yah monster, because they wouldn't go back to licking Moses' ass. Oh, whatever, man, whatever. How convenient, even if the Chosenites were obeying Yahweh and they got their asses kicked, and that happened too on many occasions, it was still called a judgment from God. Can you imagine? And, they would say, well, the king was being a bad guy, even though all the rest of you guys were following Yahweh. The king wasn't. So they would just make that up as an excuse. Nobody stopped to ask, well, wait a minute. Well, how do you call that justice? If our king is doing something, doesn't matter that he represents us. The Not So Holy Book actually says the sons shall not bear the sins of the father. It actually says that. However, right in the context of the so-called Ten Commandments in Exodus 20, the great Yah does say, I will visit the sins of the fathers upon the sons unto the third and fourth generation, Well, wait a minute, which is it? Like I said, it's a schizophrenic book with a schizophrenic message. On one hand, it says the sons won't bear the sins of their fathers, right? Everybody is responsible for his own sins. You can toast to that. That sounds good and just. But then it also says, I will visit the sins of the fathers upon those. What the hell? Which is it, Yah monster? Are the sons responsible for the sins of their father? Can you hold an entire generation responsible for something that occurred in the previous generation, or in fact, several generations before? Well, it depends on which part of the Not So Holy Book you're citing. Like I said, guys, there's something in there for everyone. If this doesn't suit you over here, we'll just ignore that and pay attention to what it says over there. And that's what they do. That's what Bible dupes do. Conveniently, they read it with tunnel vision. And, I wasn't doing it on purpose, but that's what I did as a Bible dupe. To a large extent, I ignored the Old Testament. Oh, I cited certain select passages therefrom that I was comfortable with and that matched up with my idea. And it wasn't that I was living a lie. I figured that these other dark passages were just something that was beyond my current, state of stage of development where I was at in my understanding. And someday that will be clear to me, but right now it isn't. So I'll just ignore that. And that's what they do. They ignore it because they goddamn full well know it doesn't harmonize with their rose-colored glasses view of their current interpretation. But you see, you can't ignore it because guess what? The whopping bulk of that book flies in the face of your rose-colored glasses view. Anyway, back to the notes here. The Babylonians, we're told, destroyed Jerusalem in 3 stages from 605 to 586 BC, in which year the Temple of Solomon, we're told, was demolished, and the remaining tribe members were carried into captivity. And there was something that there was a structure. Some people say, the Temple of Solomon never existed. No, it actually did. There was a temple in Jerusalem, no question about it. I was showing that a while back. It wasn't the Temple Mount, ladies and gentlemen. It was about a quarter mile south of there. Digs are still going on. But sure enough, there is a natural spring that wells up just like, as described in the Old Testament text. Of course, Bible dupes get excited when they hear about stuff like that. That proves our holy book is true. Oh, yeah? Well, okay, let's see. If you want to use that argument. I read about New York City in a Spider-Man comic book as a kid. So that must mean that the Spider-Man comics are true because they mention real cities that we know do exist, right? So if you're going to believe in the Bible for that reason, because it mentions places that are found to be real, then you should be believing Spider-Man comic books. There really is a guy who spun webs and flew. There's a lot of people in New York that spin webs, no question about that. But do they swing from building to building? No, that's just not true. But, if you're going to believe in people that spend 3 days in the belly of a giant fishy, and live to talk about it, you might as well believe in people that swing from webs from building to building in a place called New York that you read about in the Spider-Man comic book. I love the arguments they use, man. What a crock of shittery. But anyway, there was a building that, was used for sacrificial purposes. They've even found some little brass bells that, were known to dangle from the robes of the priests. There definitely was a structure there, but it wasn't the Temple Mount that they've been fighting over, because that was the sacred place of Solomon's temple. They damn well know it wasn't, guys. They're just using that as an excuse to try to push the Arabs out, so they can lay full claim now to the entire city for themselves. Jesus Christ, it's unbelievable. You know what was there on the so-called Temple Mount was the Roman fort, guys. The Roman occupation in the first century. Wow, and prior to that, going back to 168 or so. Well, Rome arose in 168. Shortly after that, it conquered Jerusalem. I'm not sure what year it was, but from the time they first occupied that area, that's where their fort was. Temple Mount, so-called. That's all that it was. How many people go to the Wailing Wall, bewailing the destruction of the temple? It wasn't there, God damn it. Like everything else with the tribe, that's fake too. Anyway, during the Babylonian captivity, the prophet Ezekiel, we're told, continued to reprove the tribe for their alleged love affair with Babylonian pagan customs. Again, guys, was it really Babylonian? Anyway, but still, we're told there was no change of heart. And indeed, there's still no change of heart today through their indulgence in their little Kabbalah. Even Luciferian and Kabbalist H.P. Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky, in her Theosophical Glossary, admits to the Babylonian origins of at least some of the teachings found in the Kabbalah. Again, Babylonian, referring back to the captivity period, not to the Babylonians themselves as being the point of origin of this thing. But nevertheless, here's what she wrote. Under her, it's kind of like a dictionary, defining different terms. Under Kabbalah, it has Hebrew in parentheses, and then she says, the hidden wisdom of the Hebrew rabbis of the Middle Ages derived from the older secret doctrines concerning divine things and cosmogony, which were combined into a theology after the time of the captivity of the Jews in Babylon. Well, she's right about that. And then she goes on to say, all the works that fall under the esoteric category are termed Kabbalistic. Well, not everything she said was bullshit. A great deal of what she said was, but not this. She's right about this. That is where it that's as far as we can trace it in historical record. Might go back before that, but then again, apparently the tribe doesn't go back much further before that either. Their roots do, but not as they are known in the Torah. Like I said, guys, most of the Torah was simply invented around the time of the Babylonian captivity. And then a couple, 2-3 centuries later, in Greece, they dug out some of these old manuscripts and revamped them and essentially rewrote them. And you can tell because, this editing job shows great ignorance about a lot of things that went on at the time of the Babylonian captivity. The book of Daniel, for example, as I mentioned several times before, the history portrayed in the book of Daniel, if you can call it that, isn't history at all. it shows whoever wrote that damn book must have written it at a later date or edited it at a later date because, again, the sequence of events does not match up at all with what we now know about Babylonian history. For example, Daniel describes how right after King Nebuchadnezzar died, his son Belshazzar took the throne. We now know that there were several generations separating those two kings, and that Belshazzar was king after generations after the Persians overthrew Babylon. So he was a minion king ruling on behalf, not independently, but on behalf of the Persian conquerors. And yet, in the story of Daniel, Daniel is still alive when Belshazzar becomes king. And again, he follows directly after Nebuchadnezzar. It's not how it happened, guys. So clearly the book of Daniel was either completely invented centuries later, probably at the time of the scholars that went to Alexandria to translate, quote unquote, the Torah. They didn't translate it, guys. They invented it or reinvented it anyway. It was at that time that a lot of this stuff was either completely invented from scratch or, so thoroughly tampered with that they added all kinds of, hyperbole and so many additional details that show us that it was not written by someone who lived in Babylon. Look at all the anachronisms that I've talked about in the past. They describe things supposedly that occurred, 1,500 years earlier, but weren't in existence until much later. They have the Egyptian kings being called pharaohs at the time of Moses, the time of the Amarna period of Egypt, 1600 BC. They didn't call their kings pharaohs then. That term didn't come around for at least 1,000 years later. And on it goes. Sorry, Bible dupes, your book is loaded with problems. I had a guy email me the other day. Sounds like a nice guy. He's a Christian, he says. And he says, I've been listening to your show off and on for years. I like a lot of your material. In fact, he requested some of my notes. But he says, one thing I disagree with you on is Christianity. Maybe we could discuss that sometime, I don't think he's been listening too much lately. He doesn't seem to be aware of how deep the rat hole goes with his holy book. I don't think he realizes just how bad it is. Anyway, I said, if you want, I'm working on a book right now. I'll send you some of the notes that I've been working on. So he said, yeah, sure, send them along. It'll take me a while to go through them, but I'll send you a response. I'm curious to see now what kind of response I'll get, if I'll get one at all. I almost feel bad for the guy. In fact, I do. I do feel bad for him because I don't think he knows what he's getting himself into. I should have given him a warning or something. You might not want to read this because it's going to shake your world. It is. Shook mine when I found this stuff out. It's a much, much, much bigger problem. I've interviewed some Bible dupes before, back in the Oracle days. And this one monkey was actually saying there's no contradictions in the Bible. Oh, really? None. Not one. That was his claim. Holy horse shit. That individual was either phenomenally ignorant of the book that he professes to know so much about, or he's lying. Well, I don't know that guy personally, so I have a pretty good idea, but I won't voice it because I don't, like I said, know him for sure. But I can tell you this, guys, my years of experience with him, people in leadership positions, ministers, church administrators, on and on, they know it's bullshit. Most ministers, I'll admit there's a few that really are sincere and don't know any better than their congregation members. But most of them, they already know, guys. They know it's shit. They know it is. They know about these contradictions. They know that the book has no goddamn credibility. None. Zero. Zilch. Which is why I'm going to repeat those shows talking about the contradictions. Wow, 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 wow. I forgot how many there were. As a matter of fact, as we speak, I'm just now drawing toward the close of what is going to be the third chapter of the book I'm working on. And this is only really the introductory material, but yet already by the time you get done with this third chapter, if you are honest with yourself and you really are truly a seeker of truth, already your belief system is going to be turned topsy-turvy. In fact, you won't even need to read any further. And I hope people will. I hope they'll continue to read to see that it's much worse than what is even brought out up to that point. But just reading up to that point, if Bible dupes can get themselves to that point, finish chapter 3, there's no way they'll ever be able to look at that book the same way again. They will not be able to call it the inspired, infallible Word of God. They'll know that it is a not infallible, clearly not infallible. It's loaded with errors. And B, because it's not infallible, they will also know they'll have to, that it can't be inspired either. How could an all-wise, all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God allow a book like that to be propagated in his name when it's so full of shit? So I'm going to repeat the shows, but you've got to see. Forget all the other problems I pointed out. Just look at the contradiction. It can't get its own shit straight. It's unbelievable. They're major, 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 major contradictions. Ones that the Bible do cannot deny. Just can't. All right, guys, jump right here.
You're not always at your computer, but that doesn't mean you need to stop listening to Renegade Broadcasting. A good way to catch our shows while you're on the go is by finding us on TuneIn Radio. There is an app for your iPhone or Android, tunein.com. There are also plenty of other ways to access the 24/7 stream right on the homepage at renegadebroadcasting.com. And that first button underneath the player is a direct link to our page on TuneIn Radio. Please remember to follow us and share with your friends. You're listening to Renegade Broadcasting.
Days grew shorter and the nights are getting long. Feels like we're running out of time.
All right, guys, back in the second hour here. So yeah, I'm just about up to page 50 now on the book, and I'm only finishing chapter 3. Oh, Jesus. So, like I said, the challenge will be later. I'm going to have to figure out. I know I'm going to have to shorten it. It's just going to be way too long. There's just too much to cover. To a large extent, unfortunately, to keep the size down, I'm going to have to just make reference to a lot of the passages and leave it up to the listener to look them up. But when it's really important, I absolutely have to quote them outright. But nevertheless, even just making reference to it, it's going to be huge. This thing's going to be a monster. Anyway, by the way, I had a listener the other day request a show on, on Christmas, a nice Scrooge show, and yeah, I wasn't going to do it at first. I'm like, I hate the thing so much, but you know what? That's all the more reason to do it because I hate the goddamn season so much. And why do I hate it, guys? Not because I'm a Scrooge, but because it's just so over the top, fake. Everything about it is fake. Every single thing. So yeah, I am going to do a show on it. It's got to be done. Where do you see how it might even be more fake than you realize? But just look at the phoniness of it. And I'm not even talking the commercialism. That's obvious. But this whole idea of, it's the Christmas season. Where's your Christmas spirit? That's the problem. How come people don't have the so-called Christmas spirit, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean? But, why don't you have it all the friggin' time? Just like churchgoers, they're nice to you on Sunday because they just, come out of church and they're still in that mode, But a few hours later, or certainly by the next day, they're back to being assholes again until the following Sunday. It's so goddamn phony. Can't stand it. I remember Christmas Eve, we used to go visit my great aunt and uncle. And they didn't have any, Christmas tree up, no decorations, And I remember feeling so bad for them. Wow, how come they don't like Christmas? And no, it's not that they didn't like it. They just couldn't give a shit about it. But anyway, to me, it's like, wow, they're missing out on so much. Here I am. I'm thinking I'm going to go tonight, to one set of relatives to open some presents. Then tomorrow I'm going to open the presents at home. And then another set of relatives in the afternoon. We would bounce around from one Christmas to another, to one grandparents, to the other grandparents. I had like 3 Christmases, And to me, that was like the highlight of the year. I would have a calendar counting down the days. Couldn't wait. It was my favorite day. My favorite number as a kid growing up was 25 because Christmas fell on the... Little did I know, one day I'd be like my great aunt and uncle at a much earlier age than they were, not giving a frog's fat ass about the Christmas season. Amazing how things change as you get older. I never thought I would hate snow one day. Used to love it. I detest the stuff now. Absolutely despise it. Anyway, but thank heavens our tastes change as we get older, right? Hopefully, as we get older, we get wiser and our tastes change. If in fact we had tastes for the wrong things. And haven't we all, to some degree or other, because we've been duped by the tribe and their propaganda bullshit? Anyway, let's look at some interesting connections between the Kabbalah and Freemasonry. Well, that shouldn't surprise us. They both come from the same source, but nevertheless, it's interesting to point this out. Albert Pike wrote in his Morals and Dogma, Masonry is a search after light. He has light in caps. Yeah. Illumination. That search, he said, leads us directly back, as you see, to, can you guess where? The Kabbalah. In that ancient and little understood philosophy, the initiate will find the source of many doctrines. All the Masonic associations owe to it, the Kabbalah, their secrets and their symbols. All the Masonic associations, all of them, he says. So shouldn't the debate end right there? Shouldn't it be over right there? As to where this comes from? Here's the top 33rd degree Mason of the 19th century, the top most preeminent Masonic scholar, telling you exactly where it came from. He was good friends with little Madame Blavatsky, who admitted the same thing. At the same time, Zio tribe members who embrace the Kabbalah express a fondness for Freemasonry, according to a French Zio periodical, La Vérité Israélite, Volume 5, we read, the connections between Freemasonry and Judaism are more intimate than one would imagine. Judaism should maintain a lively and profound sympathy for Freemasonry in general and no indifference toward it. The spirit of Freemasonry is that of Judaism in its most fundamental beliefs. Its ideas are Judaic. Its language is Judaic. Of course, the whole goddamn thing is Judaic. Not just Freemasonry, guys, as I pointed out before. Pick any secret society of your choosing from any period, from any part of the world, and I'll show you its tribal connections. I've talked before about, the Templars, Rosicrucianism, hell, even the, the Hashashin, the Muslim version, of course, Islam itself branched out of the tribe's phony religion, didn't it? Of course it did. You have to have your head fully up your ass to not see that. I even pointed out how the ninja, a Japanese secret society, if you will, has powerful tribal connections. Oh, they had their finger in that pie as well. Going back centuries, ladies and gentlemen. Talked about that in a previous show. Anyway, no surprise that the Zohar, the inspiration for the Kabbalah, should talk of world domination, a goal that Masonry has always had in common with its creators, the tribe. Here's what the Zohar has to say, guys. The Feast of Tabernacles is the period when Israel triumphs over the other peoples of the world. That is why during this feast we seize the lulab and carry it as a trophy to show that we have conquered all the other people. Zohar, Toldoth Noah 63b. There you go. But don't think for 1 minute that it's with Zohar that the whole concept of the Jew world order originated. Oh, no, 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 no. In fact, this is almost a verbatim quote from the book of Isaiah. I will bring all nations before you. They will bow before you and lick the dust from the soles of your feet. Sorry, Bible dupes. It didn't originate with the evil Zohar. It originated with the evil Old Testament, with the Torah, in fact. There's statements in the Torah that talk about this. Thou shalt rule over all the nations. They shall not rule over you. Thou shalt lend to many nations, but they will not lend to you. You shall not borrow from them, but they shall borrow from you. You shall charge usury to them, not to your fellow tribesmen. Thou shalt not enslave thy fellow tribesmen, but if you should enslave one, he shall be released upon the 7th year. But thou mayest enslave the Goy, the Gentiles, for life. They shall be your property. How can you embrace a book like this, my dearly deluded Bible dupe friends out there? How can you embrace a book that says shit like that? So when, as we expose the Kabbalah here as something evil, please don't miss the point that the evils of that volume stem from the evils of your not-so-holy book. Same is true for the Zohar. Zohar's a latecomer too. It's just following a much older tradition that originated, again, from the Torah, from the book of Isaiah, on and on it goes. Anyway, I don't have the Isaiah quote. I'm going to add that later to these notes. The actual quote from Isaiah, where you can see that the Zohar is quoting almost word for word. I've read that enough times in the past. I don't need to revisit it now. But anyway, let's look at the nonsense now of Jewish mysticism, Kabbalistic mysticism. A large part of the Kabbalah is mystical and downright bizarre interpretations of the Torah. Now, of course, the Torah is bizarre on its own, but nevertheless, the interpretations found in the Kabbalah are so bizarre. They're even more bizarre very often than the Torah. One thing you can say for certain is a lot of times the interpretations that are given clearly were not even the intent necessarily, of the original authors in the Torah. That's what the Talmud is too. When you come right down to it, it's the same thing. The Talmud is supposed to be an expanded, version of the Torah. It's a collection of rabbinical interpretations that arose, in more recent centuries, beginning around 500 AD. And again, not that the Torah itself isn't twisted. Oh, it certainly is. But a lot of the interpretations of it themselves are twisted, more twisted. As twisted as the Torah is, they twisted it even more. So in a sense, the Bible dupe is right when they say, oh, the Torah, that's just a perversion and a corruption of the Torah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, they twisted it and added all kinds of extra shit that isn't in there. But don't make the mistake of thinking that somehow that makes the Torah good and pure, because that's twisted shit itself to begin with. So all they were doing is twisting twisted shit. Adding more twisted shit to the twisted shit. Ah, shit. Anyway, from the book Hebrew Myths, the book of Genesis, we find references made to such ridiculous and unfounded teachings like, Adam's bestiality, for example. Oh, yeah. The myth of Lilith. No mention of Lilith in the Old Testament. Not in the connotation they give, anyway. And other various ludicrous ideas that are founded, in the Kabbalah. Adam's bestiality. Now, I wouldn't doubt that Adam was into bestiality. Why not? When you realize how thoroughly bizarre and twisted that goddamn not so holy book is. But the simple truth is, there's no mention of it there. It's not there. They're just adding their own interpretations in, is what they're doing. But anyway, here's some excerpts from the Kabbalah, some very bizarre, very twisted statements. This is from a comment again that the Torah here. This is from Yabama 63a. It says, some say that God created man as a woman in his own image on the sixth day. Notice, guys, look what this is doing right here. When you see all the transgender bullshit that's being pushed on people, again, it's not out of sympathy for transgender people. They don't give a shit. Just like when they pushed gay rights, they don't give a shit about gays, even though a lot of them themselves are freaking gay. They don't give a damn about the average gay person. They don't give a damn about average people, period. They've seemingly been at the helm of, well, not seemingly, they have been at the helm of pushing for, civil liberties for blacks, but do they give a damn? Do they give a frog's fat ass about blacks? They're the ones that ran the goddamn slave trade, right? Do they care about blacks? Of course they don't. They give a shit about blacks. In fact, the main reason why they pushed, things like affirmative action is not to give rights to blacks so much, even though that did come about as a result. It was more about taking away the rights of whitey. That's really what it's all about. Give them so much rights that now everybody else, the minority steps forward now as the dominant force, and the majority now gets shafted. That's what it's all about. Just like, the women's lib movement. It wasn't about liberating women. They don't give a shit about women. They're not out to exalt women. They wanted to exploit them and to trash men. And that's exactly what came about. Things, to some degree, are starting to turn around a little bit now. But for the longest time, guys, in divorce court, as a man, you were screwed, baby. It didn't matter if the divorce resulted from, your wife cheating on you or just being a raging bitch, not doing her motherly duties. No, it didn't matter. That's what the women's lib was all about, guys. And so that's what it is, with the that's what it is now with pushing for transgenderism. Oh, guys, it's just to fuck with you. That's all. It has nothing to do with concern for these minority groups. They use that as an excuse to fuck with society. And oh boy, are they fucking with it, aren't they? The only good thing about the transgender bathrooms is that you, as a father, can go into into the bathroom now with your little girl and make sure that some creepy son of a bitch isn't going to try to grope her. That's the one good thing. Bring a piece in there with you, though. You might need it. So you can blow the head off the son of a bitch. Anyway, coming back to this quote, Some say that God created man a woman in his own image on the sixth day, giving them charge over the world, but that Eve did not yet exist. Now, God had set Adam to name every beast, bird, and other living thing. When they passed before him in pairs, male and female, Adam, being already like a 20-year-old man, felt jealous of their loves. And though he tried coupling with each female in turn, in other words, he tried to have sex with them, found no satisfaction in the act. He therefore cried, "Every creature but I has a proper mate," and prayed God would remedy this injustice. There is a passage in Genesis where, it describes how Adam was lonely. He wanted a mate. But now they come along and interpret that he saw that the animals had female partners, but he didn't. He first tried to copulate with them, but he didn't get any satisfaction. You know why they put this shit in there, don't you? They're introducing their filth, ladies and gentlemen. They want you to do this. Well, if Adam did it and he was a great man of God, this is supposed to be, if you follow the timeline here from the book of Genesis, this is supposed to be before the great fall. You understand the significance of that? This is before the fruit was picked and thus sin entered the world. So by them saying that he was copulating with animals, committing bestiality before sin, the implication is that it wasn't a sin, it wasn't wrong to have sex with animals. So the natural implication is for the reader, well, shit, if Adam could do it before sin, and that wasn't a sin then there's nothing wrong with bestiality. Do you understand what this is doing? That is, I guarantee you, that is the message here. That's the meaning behind this. That's why they put it in there. They want you to think, they're not only introducing this idea to you, but they want you to think that it's actually A-okay. Not only that, but they're introducing the transgender theme here too, aren't they? Do you see how far back this goes, guys? So when you see it being pushed in our media and you understand who runs the media, well, God damn it. Doesn't take a genius to figure this out. Wow, wow, wow. Look how far back this goes. Trace it to its roots now, guys. What we're seeing playing out here with the transgender theme, bestiality, and all these other perverted sex filth bullshit, it comes from the Kabbalah, ultimately from the Torah, but it's laid out more specifically and much more detail, more brazenly, more openly. The Kabbalah, isn't it? There's another quote from this twisted, nonsensical piece of shit volume here. This is from Yalkut Rul Benai. It says, God then formed Lilith, the first woman. Supposedly, she came around before Eve. Understand, once again, this is not in the book of Genesis. Who cares what's in the book of Genesis? That's a piece of shit too. But this is not in there. This is stuff that came along later and just invented and And a great many tribe members follow this, even non-tribe members, of course. A lot of goy now, just like they got sucked into following the Torah, they sucked into following this. Anyway, God then formed Lilith, the first woman, just as he had formed Adam, except that he used Lilith he used filth and sediment instead of pure dust. So Lilith wasn't formed from pure dust like Adam was. Lilith was formed from sediment and filth, it says. Now that's interesting because, once again, This is supposed to be at a time before sin entered. There shouldn't have been filth, right? At that time, that word shouldn't have even been in use yet. But yet, here it is. She was formed from filth. What does that say about women, too, in general, guys? Look at the connotation of that. Anyway, got a caller. Oh, it's our old buddy Brian here. I haven't heard from him in a while. How's it going, Brian?
Hey, Charlie, how you doing?
Yeah, what's happening, man?
I just figured I got a moment's peace at work, and I figured I'd give you a quick call and say Happy Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
I'm surprised that you didn't devote a show to exposing that fraud of history, because considering that was one of the biggest false flag attacks in all of his history.
Yeah, I do have some notes on it. I don't think I broadcast them yet. I've talked about it, here and there.
And this would have been the perfect day to do it, old buddy, because, like I said, it's the 75th anniversary of that fraud.
Right. I mentioned it at the opening of the show, but yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm glad that you're approaching other topics. I'm waiting to find out when you're going to go back to doing some more Bible bashing.
Oh yeah, that's coming up pretty soon here. I got a few more things I'm going to cover, and then oh yes, my favorite topic. I also got a series on La Católica Church too. I don't know if I'm going to do them all at once. I got several.
Yep. No, that sounds great. Well, other than that, well, you heard the good news today too. It appears that the battle for Aleppo is almost finally over, and it's going to be a great victory over the evil U.S. mercenaries and operatives that are stuck in that eastern pocket of resistance. The good guys, the Syrian army, is about ready to take all of eastern Aleppo back, and with that, the cabal is defeated in Syria for the moment, at least.
Well, let's not count our chickens yet.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean count our chickens? They've been pleading for a ceasefire, and there is no way the Syrians should give them a ceasefire because they've been out slaughtering civilians. So as far as I'm concerned, they should do unto them what they've done unto others.
Oh yeah, I know, but is it actually going to play out that way though?
Well, apparently it is, because there's no out for them, and they're completely surrounded. The pocket's shrinking. The old city of Aleppo fell yesterday. All that's left is about just several square miles of territory in eastern Aleppo, and that's it.
But Brian, I think you've been reading a lot of these fake news reports, like the pedal ring. That just doesn't happen.
Fake news, yes.
Hey, you know what? We're going to break up and go home now.
Yes, sir.
All right, see you later.
Partial Jews are the ones who end up subverting societies because they're able to kind of go undetected.
Keep volunteering, America. Keep going along with this system.
They're all coordinating their bombings. They're all working together to destroy Syria.
First of all, these people are complete slaves. They have no control over their lives.
Suddenly the conversation got changed. Had to do something. It's cheap to talk.
People that are actively debunking these NGOs and these staged films.
This is Renegade Broadcasting.
right, guys, welcome back. Still got Brian on the line here. Yeah, so we'll have to keep our eye on that and see how that turns out.
Yep. Well, other than that, too, you were just mentioning about the fake news. I was just wondering when you're going to do a show on that one, too. Because isn't that the most disgusting thing? They're the Jewish criminal cabal that controls the media. I still call it the Jew spew media because it's exactly what it is now caught with their pants down with all the lies. People are smartening up. Problem is, though, like I said, now they're fighting back, claiming that we, you, I, and others are all the fake news.
Yeah. Oh, I've covered the media thing a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's time for a refresher on that one, old buddy. I think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I know.
Oh, by the way, no surprise, Mr. Trump has already chosen some, several people, but as far as for his Treasury Secretary position, a former Goldman Sachs executive. So we're in good hands now.
Oh, well, I had several arguments.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, I had an ongoing commentary battle with a fellow truth seeker from Tennessee, Buleman, who I respect very much, and he's very truthful. He said from day one that the Trump election is part of the game. I began to assert to him that as more like the old movie The Sting from 1973. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where everybody was on the con and everybody believed that this was legit and up and up. And meanwhile, they got stung. I do believe the American people are being stung because Donald Trump is not the answer. And
nope.
Never has been. And I do believe that it's all part of the plan to make sure that he gets selected. Because originally, I do believe very strongly that they wanted Queen Hillary. But when that didn't work, they said, oh, well, we have Plan B, our other Jew lackey, Donald Trump, ready to go. And that's exactly what the American people are going to get. So 4 more or 8 more years of Jewish criminal control as they continue to destroy America.
Yeah. Very nice. Nice
and the American
to
people
look forward to.
Yeah, and the American people just fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, listen, Charlie, I got to let you go. I got a call coming in. I know. I hate this when I call during working hours. One of these times I'll have to call you earlier in the morning, and we'll discuss other matters. But other than that, take care. I'll be waiting for your show on more Bible bashing coming up hopefully soon.
Oh yeah, you bet.
And you have a good day, old buddy, and I'll talk to you again later.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. So anyways, back to this quote here. Talking about, Lilith, the first woman. She was created from filth and sediment. Yeah, whatever. It goes on to say, from Adam's union with this demoness. Notice. She's a demon now. This is before the fall, and Adam is getting it on with a demon. We're told. Wow, whatever. But, why not have twisted ideas like this? Because the whole damn Torah itself is twisted, completely twisted. But look how they come along and twist it even more, guys. That wasn't twisted enough for them. That's why they had to come up with, things like this. The Kabbalah, the Talmud, to twist it even more. It wasn't enough to their liking, which is why, even though hints of pedophilia are in the, in the Torah, Yahweh commanding to take the young virgins for your booty. That wasn't strong enough. So they come along with the Talmud later, which actually goes into detail about how it's permissible to have sex with a child who's between the ages of 3 and 9. Oh, yeah. But anyway, the text, this quote continues here. From Adam's union with this demoness, Lilith, and with another like her named Nama. Where did they get that name from? Again, they just made it up. Of course, everything in the freaking Torah was made up too, pretty much. But anyway, Tubal-Cain's sister had sprung Asmodeus and innumerable demons that still plague mankind, it says. Many generations later, Lilith and Nama came to Solomon's judgment seat disguised as harlots of Jerusalem, whatever the hell that's supposed to be. Look how they just make this crap up. Just like good little dupes that follow the Torah. There's a great many good little dupes that follow this and somehow think that, these commentators were inspired as well. Whatever, man. Here's another quote. Then Lilith deserts Adam because she didn't want to lie beneath him during sex because she was his equal. So you see what this is talking about here. Is your idea, going way back, guys, of women, not even wanting to be equal. That's not what equal rights was about. It was actually to place women above men, or better yet, to place men beneath women. It's not about equality and fairness. No, 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 no. It's the reversal of it, guys. Just like, civil rights wasn't about blacks being treated equal. And no, 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 no. It was to place them so high and, whites so low. And look where we're at today, guys. Look where we're at today. I'm all for people treating each other equal and, being fair and on and on. But no, that's not what this is about. Not at all. Not at all. It's about trampling the white man underfoot. Anyway, the quote goes on. They found her beside the Red Sea, where she had been bearing demons, more than 100 a day. Oh, gee, she was pretty busy. Gee, she was like, the queen bee in the nest there, pumping out hundreds of eggs. By the way, the Red Sea didn't even exist at this time. This alleged time we're talking about here. Anyway, the angels told her to return to Adam or they would drown her. She argues with them and tells them that God has ordered her to strangle babies. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this. Is your child sacrifice right here. Look at the filth that anybody would even want to read this, let alone want to preserve it and read it with reverence. Read it thinking that it has something to offer. This is the Kabbalah that we're reading from here. That so many people, I mean, look at Hollywood, guys, so many people, and because they talk about the Kabbalah, how much they love it. How many millions of fans around this country do you think have gotten into this shit, not even realizing how disgustingly filthy it is, even while yet being into it and starting to read it? Just like the Bible, guys. How many people get into it because they get attracted to it by the advertisers, right? Those who portray it in a good light, just like the Kabbalah is portrayed in a good light. They think it's something good. They get involved in it. And because they have that preconceived idea pumped into their head that it's something good, they never see the bad in it, just like with the Bible, guys. It's sold to them, dressed up in a pretty wrapping paper and a nice bow. It's sold to them as something good. So they come into it thinking it's good, and they go the rest of their lives thinking it's good, not seeing all the shit that's in it. And even if they do, they ignore it, right? So it is with the Kabbalah. All that's presented to them is the good thing, so they think it's good. So now they have those rose-colored glasses on. They never look at the filth that's in there. Look at this filth. God has ordered her to strangle babies. But once again, let me remind you, yes, this is disgusting. A Christian could read this and say, oh, yeah, look at that. See, I knew that book was full of baloney. I'm glad I'm staying away from that. But yet they want to sell you their book, which also talks about killing babies. It doesn't say strangle them, though. It just says cut them down with the sword. Kill everything that breathes, young suckling infants. I have to bring that up again and again, just to make sure any Bible dupes out there don't get too excited thinking, yeah, that's it. You expose that evil Kabbalah. No, it's not just the Kabbalah that's the problem. It's your so-called holy book too, which originated this twisted philosophy. The Kabbalah, the Talmud, on and on, are just expansions of the evils in that book, brought to us by the same scoundrels. Anyway, it goes on. She also seduces dreaming men. Then God makes Adam another mate, but Adam is disgusted by the sight of her creation. What the fuck is this? Whatever. Yeah. Hey, at least they're portraying Yahweh properly here as a bumbling idiot, as well as a sadistic bastard that would give him something ugly and detestable. Anyway, God knew that he had failed once more. Look at this. And took first Eve away. So now Lilith is being called first Eve in caps here. Took her away. All right, well, at first you don't succeed, try again. I failed in that one. Let me try the next model. I just made another mold. I'm pouring in the filth and the sediment now. God tried, it says, a third time and made her out of Adam's rib, braided her hair. Oh, wow. What do you know? Maybe he gave her a manicure, too. And adorned her with 24 pieces of jewelry before waking Adam up. Adam approved, it says. Adorned her with 24 pieces of jewelry. Well, that's interesting because we told that they were naked in the garden. Anyway. I mean, this is just beyond words. What a bunch of crap, man. And look how many people get into it, guys. Its popularity has been soaring, especially in recent years, recent decades, since Madonna came out and started advertising it. Some say, here's another quote from it. Some say God created Eve from a tail ending in a sting, which had been part of Adam's body. What the fuck is this? God cut this tail off and the stump. The tailbone is still carried by men. So now the tailbone is a remnant of this original stinger. Oh, imagine that, guys. We used to have a scorpion tail. Jeez. Here's another one. Others say that God's original thought had been to create two human beings, male and female, but instead he designed a single one with a male face looking forward and a female face looking backward. Two-Face. Remember the Batman villain, Two-Face? You suppose that was borrowed from this? The tribe invented Batman, guys. And Superman and Spider-Man, and on it goes. I did a show on that a while ago. All the comic book heroes, guys, harken back, to these so-called holy texts of theirs. Remember the superhero back in the 80s, the cartoon heroes? He-Man. He-Man. There's a character in the Old Testament called He-Man, Heman. He-Man. And his little female sidekick was a She-Ra, or She-Ra, excuse me. But She-Ra is just a modified form of a She-Ra, who was the female companion of Yah-Monster. The Shasu, the original worshippers of Yahweh, who at that time probably was a good guy, but, when the tribe came along, they corrupted and perverted it like everything else. But this Yahweh had a female companion, a She-Ra. So now you've got He-Man and She-Ra. Come on, guys. All the time they do this. Remember Megillah the gorilla? I didn't know what Megillah was as a kid. I just thought it was some funny name. It rhymes with gorilla, so they made it up. No, Megillah is the name for the little bitch Esther scroll. Oh, could it be more in your face? Where does the Hulk character come from? It's a modernized version of the old Golem, the medieval, ogre type monster. Anyway, here's another quote from the Kabbalah. Still others hold that Adam was originally created as an androgen of male and female bodies joined back to back. By the way, that dualistic theme too, where, the head had two faces of Adam, one was a male, one was a female. There's your transgender thing right there again, isn't it? But now in this next quote, it's saying that he was an androgen of male and female bodies joined back to back. So breasts on one side and a penis on the other. This made walking difficult. So apparently now what they want you to think is that there were feet going in both directions. This made walking difficult and conversation awkward. So God divided the androgen and gave each half a new rear. I'll give them both an ass now. Can you imagine this fucking shit? On the one hand, they want you to think that this God is all wise and all powerful, and he knows the future. But now it's process of elimination. Oh, I fucked that up. Okay, let me try this. What the hell? God damn it. He didn't know the future, that his first idea was going to be a fuck up so as not to create it in the first place. These separate beings, he said, he placed in Eden, forbidding them to couple, wouldn't let them copulate. Anyway, I quoted those just to show you, that there's also a ridiculous aspect to the Kabbalah, not just the evil one, but downright laughably freaking ridiculous. But again, Bible dupes, don't get all excited because your not-so-holy book is loaded with ridiculous bullshit too, as I'll be talking about in coming weeks. Stay tuned. And by the way, I said I'm going to be repeating. In a way, it's not repeating, even though I have talked about these contradictions before. I just touched on them briefly. I didn't go into them in detail, and I certainly didn't actually quote the passages. I just cited the reference. But with a lot of these, I'm going to be actually reading the passages. That really brings it to life much better. So this is going to be a much better coverage of the subject. Plus, I've added a lot of new stuff in, too, that I didn't have when I first covered this years ago on Oracle. If that doesn't do it for you, well, what can I say? There's no hope. After covering that, when you see these massive, whopping, in-your-face contradictions, massive and whopping not only in sheer number, but in the actual content of the contradictions, when you see how major they are. They're not minor points. These points of contradiction are major, 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 major points. So after we go through that material, if you don't see it by then that you've been duped, that this book is full of shit and has no credibility whatsoever, again, there's no hope for you. But, give me your name and address. I'll try to find you a good non-tribal controlled psychiatrist or psychologist that hopefully can provide you with some real help, before you do something to hurt yourself. Anyway, amongst other things, let's look at another interesting aspect of the Kabbalah. It's the source, the very origin of the Hegelian dialectic, ladies and gentlemen. Ultimately, this is where it comes from. All twisted philosophies down through the centuries come from these tribal bastards. I did a show a while back on Machiavelli, ladies and gentlemen, and his tribal connection. In fact, I'll have to repeat that sometime because most of you probably never heard it. I did it on that Waking American network that almost nobody knew I was even on. And I don't even think any of those archives are still available anymore. But anyway, I did a show on that. I did a show on Sun Tzu and his art of war. Major tribal influences there too. All these twisted, sick ass philosophies of, let's concentrate power at the top. Sympathy and compassion are the vices of kings, on and on and on. All this shit, guys, it all stems from them. All of it. It's not natural. It's not normal for leaders to want to fuck their populations over, guys. These ideas have always been introduced by the tribe everywhere they've ever gone. Indeed, they can be found on every page of history for the past, 2,500 plus years. But why? Actually, 3,500 if you go back, ancient Egypt and the Hyksos occupation. These ideas go way back, but at whose hand? Where did they come from? Oh, climb that ladder, baby. Look who's pulling the strings up there. You'll see every time that they have a hooked frickin' nose. Every time, guys. Every time. Every time. Anyway, Hegel's dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, or thesis, antithesis, synthesis, actually originated back in the 16th century at the hand of the Kabbalist Isaac Luria, known as Airy, the lion. He held that all matter and thought evolved through a three-stage cycle. He called it tritium, literally contraction or thesis, cheverat helacum, literally breaking of the vessels or antithesis, and tikkun, literally restoration or synthesis. He laid out the whole plot way back in the 16th century, long before Hegel came along. Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. So it's Kabbalistic in nature, isn't it? Did not originate with Hegel. All these twisted philosophies, trace them back to their root. Unbelievable. Most truthers out there know that Freemasonry is evil, right? But how few of them know where it actually comes from, trace it to its root. The Kabbalah, ladies and gentlemen, by top Mason, according to their own admissions. Top Masonic leaders of own admissions. All right. Well, we only got a few minutes left here, but let's start a new phase of this discussion. The Kabbalistic Center. Let's take a look at that and some of its victims over the years. Wow, wow, wow. What an abomination. Well, if the Kabbalah itself, the written Kabbalah itself is evil, it's only natural that its philosophy is going to be evil, and all the institutions that have grown out of it are going to be evil, right? Didn't the great Jesus himself say, a good tree cannot bear rotten fruit, neither can a rotten tree bear good fruit? Yeah, well, that's true, isn't it? It's a rotten tree, so how could it bear good fruit? In 1969, a former insurance salesman, Rabbi Philip Berg, established the Kabbalah Center International and appointed himself as its leader. So that's where the Kabbalah Center, when and where it started. Out in LA, I guess. The center, and it's got other branch offices now, but that's where it began. The center markets Kabbalah as, quote, a universal system for self-improvement. Oh, doesn't that sound like Dianetics? Remember back in the 80s, and I think continued into the 90s, they had commercials on TV for the damn thing. They still and always have had ads, like, in magazines and whatnot, but yeah, never had they had it on TV as a commercial like that. But I remember, Get Dianetics today, available at, whatever. They had this ominous voice in the background, They really pumped it up like it was something big. I remember I had some friends back then that were into it. And even though I didn't know half of what I know now, I knew it was bullshit. I'm like, I don't get into that stuff. That's crap, I couldn't tell them why. I just smelled a rat with it. But don't think I was too smart back then, because at that same time I was telling them that was crap. I was into Rosicrucianism. Jesus Christ. No, wasn't too bright. Some things I smelled a rat with, but some I didn't. Anyway, so that's how they market it, as a universal system for self-improvement, just like Rosicrucianism, guys. You ever see the ads for Rosicrucianism? They put it even in scientific-oriented journals like, Discover, although you could argue that a lot of what winds up in there isn't very scientific either. But nevertheless, most people who read Discover are scientific-minded, And in fact, that's where I first saw their ad years ago, back in the latter 80s. It was in a Discover magazine. And it had a picture of someone looking up at a starry night sky, looking for answers. I think that was the headline, too, of the ad. Looking for answers? With a question mark. Are you puzzled with life's mysteries? I can imagine what they charge now. Back then, it was $100 a quarter every 3 months to remain a member and to keep getting your, what did they call them? Oh, God damn it. I can't remember the name they gave the damn thing. But anyways, they would send you these little pamphlets, 3 at a time, one for each month. You were to study and meditate and practice the exercise. So, recruiting for Freemasonry, that's all. Because I started getting all these Masonic advertisements. I had no idea where it was coming from. How did they get my name? Duh. All right, guys, that's it. We'll pick up tomorrow. Take care. Thanks.
Every time that I look in the mirror, all these lines in my face getting clearer. The past is gone, it went by like dust to dawn.
You're not always at your computer, but that doesn't mean you need to stop listening to Renegade Broadcasting. A good way to catch our shows while you're on the go is by finding us on TuneIn Radio. There is an app for your iPhone or Android, tunein.com. There are also plenty of other ways to access the 24/7 stream right on the homepage at renegadebroadcasting.com. And that first button underneath the player is a direct link to our page on TuneIn Radio. Please remember to follow us and share with your friends.